8:15. Okay, it's 8:15. I'd like to call the Public Utility District Number 1 of Whatcom County meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. The first thing on our agenda is our Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioners, before you go to the next item of the approval of the agenda, I'd ask if you allow me to walk on, if you will, one new business item, and that is a property license access agreement. It's for the Oxy Corp property, right you around the fire pond and the well house, fire well house and well there. We want to have an appraiser access the property. And this is the agreement for that to an appraisal property to purchase these approachable properties. Be the agreement for access and hand that out to you today. And when it comes up, I'd add that under new business.
So we'll add a B under new business called property appraisal,
Access agreement. It's an access agreement.
property access agreement, foreign appraisal.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of the access agreement discussion under new business.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's move on. So under our consent agenda, we have several minutes to approve. Our last regular meeting on August 8th. Special meeting on August 17th. And the regular meeting on August 22nd. And claims, sorry, September 12th.
I did just have one question about claims. I haven't looked at my email this morning, but I sent you an email last night about did you look at the email? No. I had a question when Steve was still the general manager, we changed in the budget that we were going to, for all of our, that we were going to buy hybrid or all electric vehicles when possible. And I don't know if that made it in the most recent budget, but I wanted to bring that up. And I forwarded you the budget documents that Steve modified from that feedback from me for the 2022 budget. But I'm assuming this is not a hybrid or all electric vehicle.
No,
Okay.
and the issue was that we go through the state contract and the hybrid or electric vehicles were 2 or 3 years out on the state contract. So we
Okay.
were able to get this vehicle, which we needed this year, was a regular gasoline vehicle or diesel vehicle, but a fossil fuel vehicle.
Okay. That's fine. I think just kind of looking forward in the budget, or maybe this is a policy document, but I'd like us to try in any case possible to start moving toward hybrid or all electric purchases. I think that PUD has been doing some stuff to try to help with fleet transition.
So I have no trouble with that at all. In
Okay.
fact, that was my first question was we should be doing this with a hybrid and or an all electric if possible. And there's the cost and the lead time issues
Okay.
were just huge.
Okay,
And
Yeah.
it was one of those things where, yeah, we need it this year, but we can get it in 2025.
okay.
I know we have hybrids. Do we have any electric vehicles in our fleet yet? No. And do we have a charging station here?
No,
Okay. So you'll obviously plan that as well.
as we do reconstruction here, yeah. For the charging station.
Okay, that was I'm not trying to get us down a rabbit hole, but that was the only thing on claims that I had a question about.
Okay.
Yep. And I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Motion a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
So let's move on to public comment. Are there any public comments in there? If there's any public comments online, please signify by raising your hand. Looks like we don't see any hands raised, do we? Nope. Let's close that public comment period. There will be another one at the end of the meeting. Before executive session, that is. Okay, so let's move on to the general manager's report.
So just three quick items. The first is that the Department of Ecology and the Department of Health are both interested in what's going on with Aldergrove. And so they're holding a drought planning meeting for 2024, and that'll be late in October. And I'll be there talking about, not just Aldergrove, but what help we can be to all of the little water districts, and how they can access that help, and make sure that the state also understands that that's where we're coming from, and they can help direct people that way. Dave Olson's obviously been very, very helpful with that, and so this is just, it's continuing on. Second thing is tomorrow the city of Bellingham is having a waterfront meeting. They're talking about their new waterfront vision, I think. I'll be at that. And then tomorrow night, we've got an adjudication meeting over at the Ferndale Center. And I don't know if any of you are planning to go. I'm planning on being there. Rebecca likely to be there. John will be there. So yeah, and the issue there is we didn't organize this. We're not, other than just providing general support to the organization, the WIN organization. But want to be there. Number one, ecology is supposed to be there, have a table to explain what's going on with adjudication. There's some consultants that really organize this thing that are making themselves available to folks for help filing claims once adjudication rolls. And we just want to make sure that their message is consistent with what we understand through the process.
So,
Commissioner?
who hired those consultants?
They are doing this on their own. They volunteered to do it, and the WIN and the Watershed Management Board agreed that it was okay. So there's no cost to any of those organizations. We just want to make sure that what's said there is appropriate. And so far, they have, last I heard, over 100 people signed up to attend.
So, who are the consultants? Is that Becky or?
No, it's their local water consultants. I can get you the list. There's 3 of them.
Rebecca's got her hand.
Oh, Rebecca. Mike, could you promote Rebecca so she can?
Better just promote it to the panelists.
Okay, Rebecca, you're on mute.
Morning, Commissioners. I'm actually at home this morning. I have some meetings with other Whatcom Water Week people after this meeting, so I'm in town right now. So the 3 sponsors of this, well, actually 4. The three consultant sponsors are RH2, American, Associated Earth Science Incorporated, and Aspect Consulting. Those 3 consultants have many years of experience in Whatcom County working on water issues and specifically water right issues. So they came to actually Henry Beerlink and asked them if it would be a good idea to do some sort of presentation on how to prepare for the adjudication. And it just so happened it worked out that they can make it happen during Water Week, which is what I work on with the Whatcom Watershed Information Network group. So that is where the PUD is involved. Becky Peters and I are sort of support people. I will be there tomorrow setting up and getting everything organized with Becky. But it's really sponsored by the 3 consultants who understand that people are going to need help. And I would like to just update, the registration is now at 294. So there's a lot of interest in this, what's going on. We did invite the ecology to come and maybe set up a table. I don't know the outcome of that, so I can't respond to that at all.
Thanks, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
I assume most of the attendants are private well owners, or do you know what kind of attendees?
No, we didn't ask that demographic at all. We just opened it up. We did have a registration. It was not required. But it is good for us to know that we know now we have to set up the capacity there. I know they have 300 chairs there, so it could be standing remotely, maybe. It's a nice facility. You've all been there. So it could be a very strong turnout tomorrow.
And it's at 5:30, Rebecca?
No, it's 4:30 to 6:30.
Okay. And
Yeah.
is there gonna be just sort of mingling and then the presentation?
And I don't think there's going to be any mingling. We expect that we'll be checking people in and trying to get them into the event and sitting down by 4:30.
Sitting
There's
down
no,
and then it's mostly a presentation.
it's a presentation. That's all it is.
Okay.
It's not a social. No, we're not
Got it.
providing, we don't have refreshments or anything planned for it. It's
Yeah,
just a
yeah, yeah.
presentation. Okay.
Okay.
And will there be a sign-in sheet?
Yes,
We will have, and will we have access to that email list?
no. We promised nobody that we would expose their email lists.
Oh, okay.
That's what we do. That's what the WIN group does. It's not, or these, we all agreed that it was
It's
just
meant to be one way. Yeah, information. Thank you. But,
information, not collecting emails.
and how about, will the event be recorded?
Yes,
Well, that's great. So folks who can't attend can also.
yes.
watch
And
it.
I'm assuming it will be posted on the WIN website. That kind of came up at the last minute, but we do have recording ability. And we haven't decided within the group where that recording will live. I'm assuming it will be kind of treated as a speaker series, a WIN speaker series potential, and we'll just post it on the WIN, but I don't want to say that for sure yet.
Thank you. Thanks for the answer.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me speak.
And that's all I have to report outside of executive session. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
I have a question for you. You quickly touched base on the water associations, and I was listening to a podcast that was speaking about the Bakerview Water Association, and nowhere was the PUD mentioned. And I was just wondering, what kind of, in our strategic plan, we said that we would have support for water associations, people in need during drought. Like, what are we doing?
So we're working with Dave Olson, and what Dave does is he assesses the capacity of these water agencies. So he's looking at the ones that are running dry. I mean, that specifically, that's what we're talking about here. It would be a different issue if financially they're running dry. But this is a water running dry.
Yeah, Bakerview is dry.
Right. And now I may be incorrect on this, but my recollection is Bakerview was the one that negotiated an intertie with Ferndale, and that's how they're getting relief. So I could be wrong about that. One of them has negotiated an intertie with Ferndale, but we've made through Dave known that, we will help. Just call us. And I don't recall the details of Bakerview, but I know I call it Bakerfield.
Is it Bakerview and Hannigan?
Bakerview, no, it's actually the Ferndale.
Yeah,
Okay,
I believe that they're the ones that negotiated an intertie with.
so it's not actually on Bakerview Road.
No. View Baker.
But I think that's what's happened to that particular one.
So at this point, though, we haven't sort of been utilized as help. Is
No,
that
Alder
right?
Grove.
Alder Grove, and they're the only ones that have been like, we need your help. And what specifically have we done to help them?
So
Sorry, I'm just trying to answer
No,
questions.
please.
yeah, so the way this works is somebody needs our help, and then we determine, is it like a right now thing, or is it, next month? So with Alder Grove, what they're looking at is their water's going down about 1/10 of an inch a month. And, sometimes more, sometimes less, but that's kind of what they've been averaging. They're going to be in a dry well condition or below head condition sometime middle to late next year. And so what we're doing is we're working with Dave, and we'll get a grant to do the study from Department of Health and Department of Ecology, and then we'll interconnect on the high side with our industrial water. They'll install a new package plant that will convert the industrial water to potable, and they're off to the races.
Gotcha.
So that's the plan there. And then if the aquifer they're tapping recharges, then they would stop drawing water from us, and they would go back on their own wells if that was what they wanted to do. But Dave makes people aware that, we'll look at anything in terms of a solution. And of course, Dave's obligation, fiduciary obligation, for his association, is to do what's in their best interest. So, if you're right next to Ferndale and Ferndale's allowing an interconnect and it's the most cost-effective thing to do, he's going to encourage that, not reach out to us. But he lets us know what's going on.
It's near Alderbrook and Vista. Almost straight west.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. That's it for my report. I said 10 minutes, that was way off.
Okay, so let's move on to old business. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Old business, and I think first thing we have a broadband update and LUD presentation.
And so just so the commissioners kind of get the context that this is, one of the questions that's been asked is how do we finance broadband initiatives writ large? And the answer is twofold. One is you finance it through grants or you finance it through LUDs. Now then there's a subset of that because the LUDs themselves need to be financed. And we've investigated how to do that. And we know we can either do bonds and through bond counsel with John, we know how to do that. We can do bank loans and Annette has lined up with a couple of different banks how to do that, or letter of credit or short-term or longer-term debt. So we can get all of that through the banks. All of that relies on, that funds you either through construction to be reimbursed by the LUD, or it funds the LUD itself, which then we would collect from tax assessments. So the LUD, we've got the financing lined out. And what I've asked Andrew to do is, twofold. One, we're going to continue pursuing grants. We believe we can have a lot of stuff available, especially through B. And then second is, what are we doing on LUDs? That's what this update is for today. That's where we are on LUDs. So Andrew, take it away.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, commissioners. I'll dive into the presentation here in just one moment. Just wanted to give a brief or quick update on the Point Roberts project, and just to let you know that we have been in conversation with the state broadband office, and they are working. We finalized our scope of work, and they're finalizing our contract now. So that's all moving ahead, which is really exciting. Simultaneously, we have the county. We've been in contact with the county to finalize our contract with the county for the matching dollars for that project as well. And they're looking to have that on their end of September county council meeting. So things are moving forward on the Point Roberts project. And then we have some other things that will be coming to you in the future in terms of how we operate the network with some agreements and things like that, but that's for another day. So I think that's it on the Point Roberts project. So I'm going to pull up this presentation here. One second. We put this brief presentation together to go over how we can get the word out about the LUD model, if you will. So this is not really a nuts and bolts technical presentation of what an LUD is, but again, rather how do we inform folks of another option parallel to the current broadband program. And I like to put the vision on here just to stay focused on our vision. And I think the current broadband program that we're building, we'll be able to look back and say it's fulfilled our vision. Being an affordable, dependable, and a sustainable program. Of course, we carry out this work through a partnership, through a steering committee with the port and the county, and who's not listed here are the many constituents who have provided letters of support and the funding agencies at the state level. There's a lot of folks here that help make all this happen to get to where we are today. And as you know, the program so far has been 100% grant focused and targeted. And we know we've been successful in that regard to the 3.1 million from the state broadband office, the county council match, and it's all 100% grant funding as Chris said, mentioned. And today it takes about one full-time employee to build that program, which is in a way, or in a sense, what we're doing right now. And then on the other side, we have the LUD model, and it's not a grant. It's important to know that the LUD model that we're talking about is a lien that's placed on the property of the homeowner, and the homeowner pays that back, as we talked about before this presentation. And how we're kind of conceptualizing this is there's targets of opportunity, kind of the way we've targeted the the areas to pursue funding in the past and today. And then there's this commission-driven kind of way of thinking about it. And this new program that we would be potentially setting up, we think would also require a full-time employee to build the program, run it, and new opportunities, so on and so forth. I want to skip ahead to, so these are kind of the primary focus areas that we've targeted in the past, right? It's really been, it's the methodology behind this, and how do we figure out where the unserved and underserved areas are? This is all becoming, I don't know if easier is the right word, but it's becoming more in focus than ever because we have more tools than we did even a year ago. And the State Broadband Office, by the end of this year, will have produced a list of every unserved and underserved location in the state for the 1.23 billion that they just received to go out in 100% grants over the next couple of years, or few years, I should say. So that's kind of what we've been looking at in the past and how we're targeting now. I'll kind of skip forward here to the end of the presentation, just because this is kind of going out of order, just because where we are in the conversation. But we put together some tools for the LUD model that could be commission focused, right? So kind of think about it, the targeted areas that we've done previously, a commission driven focus, and then we could potentially do a full on marketing plan to get the word out as well. But we could stop here and look at the tools that we've put together, that staff have put together to help make it easier for you as commissioners to get the word out. And one is this address map. Looking out, kind of if I step back, looking at the resources available on the state website and some other, I wasn't able to find a tool that you could quickly identify one of unserved or underserved areas. And then also, where are all of the already funded project areas as well. So this address map, if you were to pull it up, you can do it on your phones, or if you're out with a constituent or talking to someone, you can pull up this link and you can type in an address, or you can just click, it'll pinpoint your location to wherever you are in the county, and it'll pop up with the speeds available and the providers that are available right at your location. Or if you're in a funded project area, it'll pop up and say, this is a Port of Bellingham funded project area, or this is a Would-Be Telephone project area. So you'll know right away. And then from there, if let's say the constituent is telling you, well, I have really poor service, you could explain to them, well, we have two options. One is, you could wait a couple of years, we could pursue the 100% grant dollars that are coming down the pipe, or there's this LUD model. And if they're interested in either or, you could direct them to, from there, complete this broadband interest form. And which really fancy way of just saying we just need to capture their address so that we can get in contact with them. And there's some questions on there, like, is your address a home, a business, so on and so forth. They can upload on the interest form, on the broadband interest form. They can also upload additional information if they want. We've done surveys. The port has done surveys. There's kind of some fatigue in that regard, so we don't really want to keep drilling people with speed tests and all this other sort. But that is an option on that form as well. In addition to just capturing their address and their contact information, they can also upload or complete a speed test. They can upload a copy of a bill if they think it's not affordable. You can add some files if you have like a photo, for example, of the utility pole outside your door, and you clearly no fiber or cable or anything, right? Kind of a thing. So they're tools to help you, help all of us get in contact with those folks that are in dire need of better broadband services. And then, of course, the website documents will have information about the upcoming grant dollars, a little bit about the LUD and what an LUD is. What else? I think that's about it.
Yeah, let me just jump in here for a second and back this up so that you guys understand what we're talking about. On the one hand, we can do a very detailed marketing effort that would be, and Andrew's laid it out really, really well. That's the part of the presentation you skipped over. And it would require a significant investment, and not just dollars, but focus. And so that's one way to do it. So that's one extreme. The other extreme is the way we've been doing it, which is when we're looking for grant application areas, we find areas that look like, an LUD would work there. For instance, Ravenscrest, and there are at least two others that I can think of. And so one way would be for us to continue with the grants and do all that. And then as we find these areas that would fit for an LUD, we just kind of reach out to them and, not a big deal. If they want to do it, then we proceed. If they don't, we're okay. And so that would be the other extreme. There would be the full-blown intense marketing and then kind of the targets of opportunity. In between is the opportunity for you guys to work directly. And if you hear from constituents, yes, I've got a broadband issue, I'd like to talk to you more about an LUD. This would give you a place to send them and say, yeah, we do want to talk to you. Here's the best thing for you to do. Get on our website and hit these things, or you can even get their contact information and let us know and we'll enter it. But, so that would be the intermediate. And what we're looking for here is kind of a decision from you guys. Do you want to go big on the have an intense all-in kind of broadband thing? Would you rather us continue on the grant application side and look for targets of opportunity? Or do you want us to continue to do that and then also have these tools for you three on the website and for anybody else who just gets directed to it? That's really the question we're asking.
I feel I missed some of the conversations about LUDs because I think it's been so long. I wasn't on commission when we really were talking about them. But one of the things, I watched the presentation from KidSAP and really appreciated that. And I still had questions. So, and my big question is this lien, in order to get an LUD, people have to put lien. So what are the percentages of homeowners living in their home in areas like Ravencrest or areas in like underserved areas where there's even an opportunity, because landlords probably aren't going to put a lien on a house for renters to get
That's correct.
internet unless there's some sort of significant, boon to them, right?
So,
it's going to
yeah.
raise my property.
Two things that you'll find is that you have a very high percentage of owner occupants, okay, and that they're typically quite affluent. So those are the areas that say yes to an LUD normally. They can afford it and they own the property. So those would be kind of the targets of opportunity. One of the classic ones we found, it was kind of buried inside of other ISPs, but it was a trailer park. And there were about 100 families living in there. And the reason that the other ISPs hadn't extended was there was no way they would ever get a return on capital. So there's one that, in theory, an LED would work for that. The reality is no way. The trailer park owner is not gonna foot that bill. So there would be one where, gosh, if you could do an LED, that'd be great. We've instead set that aside and said, okay, we're not going to talk to these folks about that. We're gonna go ahead, and that's high priority for grant application, and we can fix it that way. So that's kind of how we've been doing it as we go through, because Andrew's found, I can't even tell you how many areas where it's surrounded by ISPs. It's in, formerly served census blocks. But now when you look at the individual data, you pick out these areas.
And so those pockets are gonna be pockets that we're going to try to connect with BEAD funding in
That's
a few
correct.
years, right? Okay. I would say my initial reactions are that this address map tool, Andrew, would be super helpful. And I don't know if you looked at the comments I made, Andrew, but Chris put like a little press release together, and I edited it last week. And I think one just about what the port and the PUD are doing on broadband, because I think we just sort of continuously need to update people to get accurate information out. But we say, oh, we've got grant funding for north of Ferndale and near Lake Trail, but I don't know if somebody came to me and said, here's my address, I wouldn't be able to say for sure. And some of the places are still under construction. And so just being able to say, yeah, you know what, we already have grant funding for you, construction's underway, or it's going to start in a few months. Like, that's a wonderful thing to be able to tell people. And so I think that I think that's one of the main things that people want, is to know that their need is identified and is going to be taken care of eventually. I'd say with the LUD model, the needing of another full FTE, especially after our rates presentation yesterday, makes me feel pretty concerned. and I don't know that there's really gonna be any pots of funding for that additional FTE that we could get. I'd say that, you know, is a concern for me, is the budget impact that an LUD, just the marketing and staff time that it would take to do that. And, you know,
If I may, I mean, Kitsap has done a phenomenal job with the
Yeah.
LEDs, and they started from a position of real strength. They had fiber to the home because of their water meters. They were doing meter data management, so they already had the fiber system built. And they've been doing the LED model for over 6 years now. And at last count, they had 1,300 customers hooked up to it.
And they were all financed by a local institution, and I spoke with their general counsel yesterday. And recently they wrapped all that bank financing into a bond issuance, so the debt has been from lender credit with local institutions been turned into a bond. It's been still
Yeah.
collecting the assessments to pay off the bond from the property owners.
Yeah, and my point is that they had a real leg up. They've been after it for a long time, and it's been a big focus, and we have 1,300. And what's that?
That doesn't seem like a lot of customers.
It does not.
For 16.
It's, you know, and they've had good focus on it.
But one of my questions, so if you have, you know, an affluent community up towards Maple Falls and they decide they want to create an LUD and we go all in and we get fiber up there, will that help the other, you know, other people? Because the fiber's already there, can't we draw on that to a network? Do you know what I mean?
I do, and I would just say that we need to talk about that offline.
Okay.
Yeah, every chunk though does have a positive impact. Any chunk.
It does. The issue becomes one of latecomer agreements and free riders. So let me talk to you guys about that offline separately.
So, for me, from the, you know, being exposed to this topic for a few years, the things that really make LUDs more likely to be successful are high rates of adoption in a community. Meaning that not a lot of people who opt out of an LED agreement because obviously it makes it more expensive.
And the boundary for that is adjustable by us. So, you know, we can choose that, and we can also tell the community, we won't go with an LED, we just won't do it. Unless you have a certain adoption rate. So I mean,
yeah.
there's other things that you can do to help structure this so that it has a much higher degree of success.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll come up with a better term for this, but like, it seems like there a certain sense of neighborhood cohesion around the idea of improving their service. And so a broadcast marketing effort, and I agree with Commissioner Grant's point about the cost of a dedicated staff person. It seems like a broadcast marketing effort wouldn't be the most efficient way anyway. Because it wouldn't be well suited for many people in the AUD model. But I think again, at least speaking for myself, my thinking has always been a multi-pronged approach. And to use different tools to address different segments and not pretend to have solved the entire problem all at once. And so I think you're right in describing Ravens Crest as I think a very well suited potential, not
And they decline
really decline.
because of the cost.
But what I'm trying to say is that there are other Ravens Crest out there,
There are.
and one of them would be interested. So I'm comfortable, at least speaking on my behalf as a commissioner, doing research. Maybe we could divvy up our map, you know, and identify neighborhood associations, visit those neighborhood associations, and see what potential there would be for LUDs in our respective districts. And then come back, you know, utilize the tools that Andrew has built for us. And that way you don't need a dedicated staff person.
Well, if you generate a whole bunch of these LEDs, then we'll
Right.
need a dedicated staff person.
Yeah,
Yeah, but then there'll be the revenue associated with it too.
We'll have to make sure of that, you know.
Yeah.
So I would just advocate that, I mean, another thing to think about is the areas that I would point to would be ones that have a homeowners association. So not just a loose neighborhood association, but an actual HOA that has some enforcement capacity. Those,
Sure.
and so trust me, we've identified a number of these and we do want to just reach out to them. That being said, we have to be careful because these can also be areas we really want to do grant funding for other reasons. And
Right, we don't wanna cherry pick our best
right,
neighborhood that we're most likely to get BEAD funding for, because once they're served, then we can't get the BEAD funding
That
for
is
it,
correct.
so it's kind of, yeah.
and I'd rather bring more money into Whatcom County. That seems to be part of the right answer.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and I think there's a little bit of a, the folks that don't have good internet, waiting a few more years is a tough pill to swallow. But, the getting BEAD funding would be preferable for most folks over doing the LUD. So, it's not an easy solution.
You know, I think with many of them, it's going to be a trade-off between speed and cost. So the cost may be low enough that they're willing to trade the cost to get it quicker. And then they would say, hey, don't worry about BEAD, put that somewhere else. We've got this group of people that are willing to self-fund and we want to quit. That's great if you can find those, and we may be able to. I think, in fact, I suspect we've identified a couple of them already.
So maybe what would be helpful for the commission would be a document that attempts to identify ideal communities for BEAD. And in relation to that, communities that are ideal for LUD financing. So that obviously it's impossible to capture all the factors, but that would give us an ability to understand, okay, this is a really good community target for LUD. This is a really good community target for BEAD funding. And they don't even have to be real communities, just capturing the aspects that really allow you to differentiate what's the right tool for the right group of people.
I think there's a million different ways to slice this, and I would suggest that what you might want to look at is over the next 6 months or so, we're going to put together what we believe is our first BEAD application. And so then that would give you an idea of areas not to go look at for LUD. And
Yeah, but
Sorry,
I don't
can
want
you
to wait
repeat
6
what you
months.
just said? In the next 6 months, we're gonna be putting together a BEAD application?
no,
No,
what I said was in the next 6 months, we're going to be putting together the target areas for
Target
BEAD
area,
applications.
okay.
And we can get that to you. And because we have an idea of what's going to be required to win a BEAD grant.
Mhm.
And so we can bound what we're looking at, and we have to be ready. If the state should suddenly miraculously get its act together, yeah, we have to be ready though. I don't want to be, oh my God, we're starting from scratch and we've only got 6 weeks.
So, yeah, why can't we do similar target areas for, now we know everything that we need to be able to identify suitable target areas for LUD funding. Let's identify some target areas.
I think we can do that. It just requires time
Yeah.
and focus and effort.
And I think if I may, I think that this comes back to, I mean, this is gonna connect to what we're talking about later on in the agenda, which is priorities. And we, for our budget, for our small staff, and we can only do so much all the time. And what is it that we think is the most important? How do we want Andrew to be using his time? How do we want Chris to be using his time? Do we want to pursue an LUD model, or do we want to be pursuing energy projects or support to small water districts? So I'm not trying to hijack this conversation, but I think it is important because as we saw yesterday, we don't have just unlimited funding. And so I guess one question I have for you, Andrew, and I don't know if you want to pull up the budget slide that you put together, but is there kind of a way that we could dip our toe in the LUD model? Is that even helpful? Is it better,
We know and I don't want to say it in front of an open mic, but we know a likely area, and two things. It's likely that they would say yes. And it's also very likely that they would be a great deed or other application. So, you know, that's kind of the dilemma. Most of the LUD stuff that we've identified is going to be like Ravenscrest, where they're affluent, high-end homeowners, and it's going to be expensive to serve them because they're out, not necessarily in the yard off areas, but close to it, and it'll require significant extension. And then they're going to make the call.
It's one of those dilemmas, just education for me. If you have enough interest showing in LUD, that same interest is going to be supportive of a BEAD application. Because you have a concentrated area that has interest in.
Generally,
fiber.
yes, unless their need is for speed. In other words, they want the fiber now.
Yeah,
or
no,
6
that's the
months.
timing of delivery, then they make the economic choice. Wait for the grant
Exactly.
versus pay for it themselves.
Right.
And there's the personal business decision that they'll make, and that's why we haven't been able to implement the LUD in some areas.
Well, I could see us implementing our own policy statement around BEAD and LUDs like this. We direct BEAD funding towards communities that are less affluent, and we target LUD funding to communities that are more affluent. That would be a rational thing to do. But the name of the program is equity.
Yeah, I would there's the law of unintended consequences. So if you've got a relatively affluent area that you could get an extension for in BEAD, and you're running your trunk line right through an area that is not affluent, and then you'd be able to have kind of a free rider for them, and you know the ISPs would jump all over that. And I can give you a specific case, but I don't want to give it to you right now. Yeah. So there are other things to think about that are not necessarily just the community itself, but you know, if you've got the community and like the trailer park that I mentioned earlier, there's already ISPs and fiber and everything all around it. So, you know, for that one, it's like, it's not going to be funded. Even if you ran fiber right across the middle of it, the ISPs aren't going to jump on it. That's just not going to work. So there's one where BEAD funding, not LUD, is the applicable approach. There are other ones where you've got an area that you might be able to LUD and it's way over here, but you got to run through this poor area to get there. So if you get somebody to fund that BEAD, you're essentially getting a middle mile, and then you can use that for these other areas. If that makes sense. I can show you on a map after the meeting.
Okay, we can talk more about this.
I'm sure this is a whole can of worms, but the underserved areas in my area, that where it's a community that's affluent, they're getting Starlink. Do you know what I mean? Like they're finding a different way to get served. And so putting a lien on their house is a lot less desirable than, you know, just getting a different form of accessible internet.
That's their call.
That's their call.
And if they're affluent enough,
it's
then
more
you know,
expensive
that's
for
their
them to
choice.
use Starlink than it is.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's so where I'm going with this is I think it's great to have, like, you know, multiple models, you know, you were said multi-pronged approach, but it seems to me that the communities that will be best served by an LUD are also can be served in other ways. Does it make sense that we apply, you know, a lot of pressure, a lot of funding, a lot of research into an LUD model when really it's not as equitable? So I don't know. I
hear what you're saying, and I think that also relates to the points I was bringing up about priorities.
Right.
And we have to really think through, how are we going to try to make the most benefit, you know, provide the most benefits to our community? And I like the LUD model, but you know, the fact is that Andrew's also supporting Chris on energy related projects. Now everybody only has so much time and energy in a given week. And I mean, I still feel like I don't have a complete picture for how we allocate staff resources and everything like that. But I know that if we go whole hog on LUD, that means less of Andrew's time working on other projects that can serve the community. And so we have to make that trade-off and also understand that there might not be demand for the LUD because of both Starlink, and if somebody says, well, you might be getting, federal dollars for fiber, can you just kind of
Wait a
limp
couple
along with your slow internet for a little bit longer? I mean, I might even say, oh, we'll just wait for the federal dollars, and the lien, and there's complexity in this model that could deter people. So that's, I mean, it.
So with that as kind of the backdrop, what I would recommend is, number one, we should have as a priority to continue to pursue grant funding for broadband. Just
Yes,
for later
absolutely.
discussion. And then we know that just because of how we've looked at this, we're going to come across areas where an LED would be the answer. And it'll be kind of a, flashing light
Okay.
that you ought to do this. And I think that, what we should have is encouragement from you guys when you get one of those, I'll call it a freebie on the LEDs, that we've got your nod to move forward on it. And then the third part is that should someone come to you and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about, we want to give you some tools so that, if it becomes one of those blinking lights, like, hey, this one really makes sense, and we hadn't found it any other way, that we would have a mechanism to get that into the queue. The other thing is that very likely if somebody comes to you and they're desperate, they're probably going to be a lot better off with BEAD funding or some other external grant funding. And it'll really funnel them into that, and it'll give us another group of people like Jamie that we found up in
Zero.
I mean, these folks that are willing to go out there and help their little area, and because it helps them. I mean, it's enlightened self-interest. Right?
Yeah, I mean, but like, we're talking about Ravenscrest or Jamie. These are all people that
Well, they can help
I
themselves.
found by reaching out to people in the community and saying that I want to find suitable regional routes. I mean, all of these projects are people that through a very ad hoc personal effort to market the PUD as an enabler of broadband infrastructure.
And I just wouldn't advocate at this point marketing at that level. I would say we need the ability for folks to reach out to us and for you to have tools should you talk to someone. But I wouldn't, encourage you to go out there and really search and market. If you do, and we end up with lots and lots of these little LUDs, then it's a focus issue.
So one question, you said there could be situations where there's like a flashing light and it's
Yeah.
like this community is good for an LED. So in a situation like that, I don't know, it's 20 homes or something. You think that we could pull off, so let's say that happens in the next 6 months.
Mhm.
So you and Andrew think that you could pull off doing an LUD for a 20 homeowners association, and we won't need a full FTE to do that. Like, walk us through the budget impact of that.
So if it's a small setup like that, there'll be some time with John, obviously, because you're going to have to make sure you've got everything right in the construction of the LED. That we understand. There would be the agreements that have to be signed with each one of the homeowners. And then the thing would have to be designed, and you'd have to bid it, and you'd have to finance that, build it. And then once it's built and commissioned, then it would be rolled into the assessment. So the next year in the tax assessments, you'd start having a revenue stream.
So that's a pretty significant.
It's a pretty, even
Project.
for 20, it's a
Okay.
significant project. That's why, we can do that, but it's.
Rolled into the assessments.
Yeah.
Our costs, bond costs, buying.
Right.
finance.
To some degree, there
But we
would be
have
a
to
little-
front run those costs.
You're gonna,
So-
you're gonna front them up usually like on a bond anticipation note of something they're financing from, let's say, local bank. Then when you have a closeout, all those costs is put back into the assessment and spread out amongst money. 1,400 property owners, along with all the construction. And then that's done, and then you have your 20 years of assessment to pay.
This brings up for me a really important and fundamental issue of how this PUD operates in its government. And that is, I've always had the belief that the understanding and the acquisition of the community's needs and wants is the responsibility of the commission, not of staff. And, saying that there will be a community, putting the responsibility on the community to approach staff to identify their needs and wants. Doesn't feel ideal to me.
Is that what we're doing though? Like this?
Yeah. Like I went out and asked people in the community what their needs and wants with respect to connectivity were. That's how we got some bona fide interest. And, you know, I think we've all done that perhaps to some degree as well. But I stopped there. And I think that I think what the commission on water, on energy, and on broadband should be more driving the discovery of what it is we want to do when we grow up. And not that we're gonna grow up, every organization has a constant, that phrase is meant to be, not that I'm not currently growing up, it means I'm always trying to grow up a little more. And so that evolution of the organization should not be federal government driven. It should not be public finance driven. It should be driven by what we determine are the needs and wants. And we may not be able to meet those needs and wants. I understand that. But I am still seeing a missing link here in how the PUD operates in terms of understanding and developing those needs.
So if I may, in a representative democracy, you folks are elected to make the best decisions on behalf of the constituents. And that may not be what they want. They want peace in Ukraine. That is not our business, right? So the thing that I would urge you to think about is that you need to come with the idea of what is the best interest long-term for our community. And it may be that it's to attract maximum grant funding and bring, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars of federal money in here and get the backbone and middle mile built out to the edges of our area. That would be a recommended vision on my part. It may be that people come to you and say, you know, me first, and that's okay, because that helps us put these things in order. But it doesn't mean that, you know, that you need to identify the want and need of every individual customer and then bring that here and have a small organization attempt to drive all of those different outcomes. It's that's a little bit of the cart before the horse. It's a representative democracy.
I think that's a good conversation.
Yes. Okay. I've got nothing else.
What's the next step here? How are we gonna put a pin in this?
Well, I guess we need to go through the prioritization discussion and then circle back on this, because my recommendation is that we primarily pursue the grants and then we pursue targets of opportunity with IUDs and just have tools available for folks. So as they come forward that we can manage that. That may not be the outcome of the discussion. So I don't want to prejudice that, but that today, right now, is my recommendation.
And is this address map tool something that we can, is that something you already created, Andrew?
Yes.
I mean, that's awesome. That alone.
It's
is
actually
great.
been on our website for quite a while.
Oh, it has? Okay, I haven't known about it.
I'll use it.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
You've seen it, okay?
actually, that'd be a great thing to pop into that press release that we've been working on.
That'd be a great thing to put in the press.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm okay putting a pin in this conversation here. I do really appreciate that we've come back to try to kind of find some, not closure, but just not forget about this
Yeah,
as a
definite
tool.
path forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I've had a chance to even talk about it, you know, so it's been a while since it's come up, so, you know, I'd love to have more conversations.
Mhm, mhm. Okay,
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Andrew. Let's move on to the adjudication update.
Sure, we'll have some discussion about that later. I am seeing, a few things. We have heard from oncology, they're now looking at April and adjudication. There are some other legal questions that are internally looking at this process. Have some other updates in the executive session. I am having a meeting with tribal council and the college's council, meeting over on Zoom, to start teeing up some of the different things we discussed. Discussions on each percent to budget provides such as what it's the rules for the education for judge authorized and deal with late time serve issue serve parties, how to assess buyers, property to know about adjudication, it's not on title. Notice provision for the buyers property. Owner of the house. How does that the buyer? So how do we have to handle late time? That's just one example of some of the issues. There is some talk, and I'll do this later, but about a joint press release communication piece because there's still some parties in the community that are publicizing opposition to the commencement of the adjudication. So far down the path. And there's value to the press release. To say this is not this is what people are very forward. This is what you're thinking about. This is where it may be beneficial, may be harmful, but this is that. With some reflection to it, no, it's not to see stop. So. Later,
Yeah, my concern about too much talk about trying to stop the adjudication might result in people that are the most vulnerable to the adjudication not preparing for adjudication. That would be my concern. Certainly people have the right to opinion, but I don't want people to not be prepared. And of course, tomorrow's event hopefully is the beginning of that. And I'm glad it's not.
There'll be other opportunities.
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to still trying to put a CLE together in January time frame with the other outreaches going on.
So John, you just hit on a really important thing there, and I don't think folks have really connected the dots on this. We're gonna have what 20,000 different people served in this process, and many of them are gonna want representation. And right now, there's just a handful of attorneys that are qualified, not even a handful, yeah. Well, yeah, and that's a real problem. So one of the things that John and his folks are doing is trying to get together an education so that there are in fact more attorneys locally that people can turn to and get help from. That it's not just few out of town or potentially conflicted attorneys.
And not to undermine the WIM's presentation, Marlon's education, but in private business, I see 5 consultants signing up to do a presentation, their marketing their services for helping clients.
Sure, there's a win for them.
That's why they're there.
And more
That's
later.
why- more
Yeah.
exactly.
All right, well, that's old business, I believe. Let's move on to new business. So we're gonna talk about the commissioner input for the budget. Annette?
I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Good morning, commissioners. So basically, I don't have a presentation. It's pretty standard, but this is your opportunity to kind of kick off all the budget thoughts and priorities and what just me taking notes on what you would like to see in the budget and what you would like to see prioritized in the budget. Any new projects you might come up with. I mean, after last night's rate discussion, we all know how we're a little nervous about new projects, but you know, this is the time that, you know, we're just getting your feedback on the upcoming budget.
Annette, how much, if anything, is put aside for staff appreciation, wellness, and development?
We really don't have a budget, I guess, for that. We used to have an annual dinner. We do have small dollar picnics once in a while, which are kind of a staff oriented, but those are small dollars, and so they're not really a set aside budget project for that.
I think Anne would like to.
Yeah, and
There's about $2,500 for the employee appreciation. The rest of the funding all comes from sponsors.
okay.
So there are certain things that we can pay.
Uh-huh.
And that's like food and that is all down from small budget.
Small, yeah. We have how many employees? 18, 24? I would like to see some money put aside for staff appreciation. This is all coming up because I had a conversation about a birthday and I'm like, oh, I hope something nice is happening for this person's birthday. And it's like, well, we don't really do that. I would like to see some money put aside for appreciation. Also, you know, are people getting service awards for 10, 15, 20, 25 years of employment? They are. And you know, wellness services, there's lots of different places that you know they can offer extra mental health care help with nutrition, just and these are organizations that run this type of thing. I would like to see us participate in something like that. And you know, we spend a lot of time and money on development of the commission. And I would just hope that we're spending as much time and money on developing the staff. Like, are there workshops they can go to, and we're putting money aside for that? Okay.
Yes, and we have formal training, we have workshops. We do have an employee assistance program that's available for all employees, so that deals with the wellness and crisis intervention,
Okay.
and that's extended to the families as well. We can get you the whole
Okay,
package.
great.
So yeah, a lot of what you're looking for, we're doing. There's not just a big pot of money that's set aside for employee recognition, where we identify need in terms of training or something like that. We take care of.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, oh, go ahead, Annette, sorry.
Sure. One of the things we do have to be a little careful with is anything, we have to be careful with the gift of public funds. So like the service awards and things like that, we have set out in a policy and it's preset, you know, once you hit this, you get this. But just as far as just going out and having a party, like we used to use those dinners, but I had to be really careful of, we also had vendor support on some of those. And so the vendor covered the things that I thought the SAO would have problems with, that would be considered a gift of public funds. And then we would cover things like the training. The speaker was the training. So we could cover that because I could justify that to SAO. But that is one thing that we have to be a little careful with these things.
Right. I just think it's important because it impacts the culture of the organization, you know, whether staff are happy and appreciated and, you know, see opportunity for development. It also, you know, impacts longevity of employees, that sort of thing. So looking forward to seeing that in the budget.
So an issue that's come up as part of discussing staff and staff evolution, staff growth. Is the public employee system PERS. And I'd like to see some financial analysis.
I can supply that with you. I would strongly urge you to consider that for our executive session.
Okay,
Um,
yeah. And look, can we put that on the agenda to go over that?
Yeah, and actually, we already have the financial analysis. I've gone through that with.
Okay, and a subsequent meeting. Obviously, I think
We
today.
can do that, or I can get a copy of the spreadsheet and we can talk about it today.
Great.
It is germane to what I want to talk about today, what you guys.
So for me, I think, we did a strategic planning in 2022. And finalized the strategic plan, August of 2022. So it wasn't that long ago, but we have a new commissioner, and I think, I went back and looked at the strategic plan. I have it written, but we have, I think, like 10 goals and 22 strategies, and we said they were prioritized, but they're not really prioritized. And so we also did all of our strategic planning with Jim Darling on Zoom, which is just not the same. So I really think that we do need to, I don't know that we actually need to do a full strategic planning session, but I really think we need to prioritize the goals and strategies in our strategic plan. And listening to a little bit about, kind of listening to some podcasts about organizations going through transition. I would recommend that we have some budget for a facilitator to come in that might have more of a executive coaching background to work with both staff and the commission to kind of open up lines of communication. I also don't think we did a great job in the last strategic plan of really engaging staff and getting staff buy-in and feedback on all the plans. At least I didn't feel like I was able to engage directly with staff just because everything was still on Zoom.
Mhm.
And so I think this does actually connect to what you were talking about, Commissioner Arnett, with employee recognition, but I also just think having a facilitator come in with that organizational development, executive coaching skill set that can just help us begin talking to each other and communicating a little bit more would be good. I think we paid Jim like 20 grand last year. I don't know that we need to do that much more, but I see a real need for that right now with the kind of place we're at with our organization. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I actually,
Okay.
I don't want to end it. So I had this set aside for my commissioner report,
Okay.
but I was going to recommend that we have some sort of board retreats.
Okay.
But you're wanting to bring in staff, so it's a little bit bigger, it sounds like, but I agree that we need to refocus our goals.
Yeah.
We could do a workshop like we did yesterday. That was the main version of it.
Yeah.
And off schedule from our normal commission meetings and bring a consultant in to talk to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that's. I can arrange that.
Okay, and I have some names, and I know John and I talked about this a little bit, and he's got somebody too. But you know, Jim was great, but we can't do this on Zoom anymore. We gotta get in person to do it.
Jim living down in Arizona now, it would be expensive to have.
Yeah,
If you want to pick on him in particular.
Yeah.
it'd be
No,
expensive.
we don't need any, we just need a facilitator with executive leadership.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, actually, I was planning on making comments along those lines too, so yeah.
Okay,
We're all on the
sounds
same
like we're all on
page.
the same page.
Yeah.
Well, and then I think the other thing with the budget, and Chris, you feel free to chime in here too, but well, and then I guess this does get back to prioritization, but is thinking about if we're doing, bigger energy supply projects, what kinds of costs does that incur? And, right now it's mostly just your time, but
Very soon.
Yeah.
It's gonna be big dollars. And
Yeah.
I want to talk about that in executive
Okay.
session.
okay.
So to touch base on something that Commissioner Grant brought up earlier about the vehicle. I don't know how fleet management works here. Do we set aside money each year for a new vehicle, or
Well, no, we take an asset management view of it. So we look at the mileage and maintenance costs for each vehicle. And that'll help determine, like for the Prius we've got out here, for instance. The maintenance costs are still low, the mileage is still relatively low, so it's not on the replacement cycle. And really, we only look out the next 2 or 3 years. The Colorado truck that we just replaced was,
2000.
yeah, a lot of miles, a lot of hard miles. It was not in great shape. We were putting a lot of money into maintaining it, so that's how it ended up being at the top of the list. But we do it for an asset management perspective. So that Prius, I think it might be the oldest car in the fleet. And that's okay. I mean, if it's still functioning and, a good value, and why would we replace it? So, yeah, we don't have, I've worked with organizations where they had hard and fast, at this many miles or this many years, it's replaced. And that's how they did it. And frankly, if you've got lots and lots of vehicles, you can make things like that and you'll be 90% right. Just, the truck gets to 150,000 miles, time to replace it. Odds are that's correct. So, but that's how we do it. It's based on time and condition. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for your input, and I will be working on the budget. So if you have anything else, please let me know.
Well, I guess I do have one last question, but Chris, understanding that we really do need to do this prioritization process.
Would you like to have a relatively quick turnaround?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like
next week?
the prioritization should inform the budget, unless we're gonna lose a whole calendar year.
No, I would suggest we have a prioritization workshop in the next week or so.
I mean, because really what we need, the three of us need to sit down, look at the strategic plan and say, I would love to know what your top 3 goals and strategies are, each
Sure.
of you. And I'd love to know, ideally we would have perfect alignment, but something tells me that might not happen.
Sure.
And then I think we need to kind of figure out, and I say 3 because we're small. And I think sometimes in organizations that are small like this, if you have more than 3 priorities, you have no priority.
Mhm.
So I would love to do, I think if we could do like what we did with rates and just kind of hash through this current strategic plan, that'd be great.
Are all 3 of you in town next week?
So,
Yeah, I don't have a good handle on my schedule. I can't.
So.
I'll be able to check.
Okay.
That stuff that's up on here.
A special meeting next week, and it'll just be a prioritization workshop.
I'm out of the area next week. I won't be available. That matters.
Oh, you're gone. Okay.
Yeah, I'd rather not.
What do you want? Okay, so if you could just get today and tomorrow to get a chance to coordinate with the 3 of them, you got my calendar. And then we can-
Cool. More to the end of September, we'll be better.
Then we're pushing up against our budget. And if you want major changes,
True.
that earlier is better if we can do it.
So the 26th is our next meeting. I guess that week would work too. For me. Next week,
And Friday.
next week could work. I just don't, I can't speak to my schedule right now.
Okay.
I'll send her.
Is
Okay.
next commission meeting too late? For the budget information?
Well, I think,
No.
and that we're getting the first budget readout to the commissioners, the first meeting in October, right?
Second,
Second meeting, okay.
yeah,
So we've got a little bit of time. But this is one where more time is better for us.
Sure,
because
sure.
We're investing in building a budget and we've got projects and we're trying to line that up with the strategic plan and make sure it fits.
Right, this week, Friday, but maybe too short notice.
Yeah, I'd have to do it first thing. Yeah, I don't know if that would work. Well, why don't we all look at our calendars and get some dates to Ann? Does that
Yeah,
sound good?
today
And I
I'll-
think frankly, the most important thing is that we all sit down with the strategic plan and review what's in there
Right.
and start deciding what rises to the top for each of us.
Yeah, but I assume we're gonna have to hash it out. And
Yeah.
We'll need the back and forth.
But I think if we all came to that meeting with our top 3 and, revealed them, that would be a good starting place. Behind door 1, yeah. Does that make sense to both of you?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll make myself available, except for Tuesdays, we have football.
okay.
We'll figure it out.
Next time.
Yes,
Next item is the access agreement.
Yeah, I have this is coming out of a discussion from executive session. I'll pass out a simple license agreement, pass that down. One more here. This is a license agreement that's been negotiated for 9 months to access the property at the Grandview Water System, where we have an existing easement. We want to look, we need more land for protection and operation of the facilities there. We're looking at the fair market value of the expanded easement and or the entire property. We need an appraisal. We need the permission to access the property. They've asked for their cost recovery plus a fee, and that's total now of $1,300. So we'd ask for your approval of this pending final approval by legal counsel and Chris. It came together late Friday. I hadn't looked at the delegation of authority to see if Chris had the authority to sign it. We just decided to walk it on the agenda.
Okay.
I think
Instead of
the
going through that.
license, because that's what it is a loophole in our delegation of authority. Normally a $1,300 item, I wouldn't bring to you guys, I would just decide to do it. But the question was, since it's a license, I just don't think we have that spelled out.
Okay.
So just as a reminder, we don't have enough space around the potable system in Grandview. And the landowner there has been very unwilling to work with us. And so we're in the process of making an assessment to proceed with the condemnation.
And possibly negotiation. They are granting this license and we have worked through their council on it. But the condemnations and reserve, we'll fill in the blank when we double check on the easement that was recorded on time. And there's a missing apostrophe and things I saw in here, so we'll do that.
So basically, we needed this license to do the appraisal.
Yeah, we can't
to do
access the
condemnation.
We can't access the property without their owner's permission.
Yeah.
The appraiser needs to get on the site. Once we have that value, we'll make an offer.
Okay.
To purchase this
That's
outside of,
the key. It's
we have an
only if-
operating easement, but we don't have an easement to do.
we have a
more.
smaller easement for operation, but we need to get on the rest of the property too.
And the issue is with our potable system, we need to have a security fence that's of certain dimensions, and we don't, and it would be beyond the existing easement.
And is the kind of so the fact that we were able to get this license is an indication that the landowner is open to us.
Let's discuss that in executive session.
Do you need a motion or just a head nod?
A motion to approve.
Okay. I'll make a motion unless there's more questions.
No.
I'll make a motion to approve the property access license agreement.
Subject to final approval by the government.
Subject to final
Second?
approval.
I second.
On the motion and second, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thanks. Good luck.
So thank you. Ken. Let's move on to the operations report.
Brian?
Morning, Commissioners. I just have a couple items. One is I'll give you a status report on a few of the capital projects we have going on. And the second thing is I touched a little bit on cybersecurity and some recent grant funding that we secured. So on the projects, and bear in mind, I'm just the spokesman here. Kurt and Garrett have been the ones pushing and pulling these projects, trying to get them to the finish line. But the good news is, as of today, we have 2 projects that are at the completion point. Garrett just completed a meeting with our contractor and a walkthrough of the East Pond, Sediment Pond cleaning project. And that was successfully completed as of this morning. And this was an interesting one. It went very well. Obviously, we had the cooperation of the weather. But the amount of material they took out of that East Pond is, in my experience, the most amount of sediment we've removed from a pond, particularly the new ponds, since I've been here, when those ponds were created in 2012. So that project came off on budget and within the time frame allocated. So we can cross that off our list. The second one is the rooftop solar voltaic project. This morning, we're supposed to have L&I inspector coming on site to give his blessing. And once that's done, we will, and scheduled for this afternoon, do a walkthrough with the contractor, Western Solar. And if everything goes well, we'll be energizing that project this afternoon, flipping the breaker and doing the final commissioning things, and that project should be complete as well. One of the things that we're looking at with the solar project is figuring out how to go live with, we'll have a digital readout of the performance of those panels, the output on an instantaneous basis. And we're in discussion with IT how we could take that live, put that solar panel readout on our website so anybody can view the performance of those panels at any time. So feel real good about that one as well. The third one is our Ferndale substation project. We're actually at the commissioning phase. So I'm fully confident, hopefully, that project will be complete this fall. What we're waiting for right now is for Patalco to get a testing controls firm on site to test relays, look at relay settings, test the breakers, everything, make sure everything's fully functioning before we sign off on the project. Patalco's had some problems getting somebody on board. So quite frankly, the status right now is if they can't bring somebody on board, we'll retain a firm to do that work and we will bill Patalco for it since that's within their scope of work. But we're not at that point yet, but we're down at the last stage, which is commissioning and then close out of that project. So hopefully by next year, you won't have to hear about the Ferndale substation project anymore. The other thing I'll mention, which is also I consider good news, is Paul Sigmund has been able to secure 2 state grants that support our cybersecurity efforts. And basically those 2 grants total about $168,000 over a 3-year period. And it's 100% grant, and it's for cybersecurity services, certain types of cybersecurity services, which I won't mention online here. But with completion of those services, the state will reimburse the cost. And we're talking about budget, but our cybersecurity efforts, both in terms of staff time and budget, we're probably spending, and I don't have the exact number, I could get it for you, but we're spending somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 a year on services to make sure that we're safe and that we meet the NERC reliability standards regarding cybersecurity, and we do it for our own utility best practices for our protection and also for our customers' protection. So it's a growing portion of our budget. And anytime we can get a grant like this, it helps offset those costs and means we don't have to put as much money in the budget to be recovered through rates. So Paul is looking at other grants. I assume he's going to be making an application for additional grants in the future. And I think with that, I'll just stop, see if there's any questions.
No questions from me. I'm just really impressed with all these things and also hope that Ferndale substation is finally behind us. It's been a long, hard one, but yeah, great work. And can we get a picture of the solar panels when they go up for
When
okay.
it goes live, and we'll hang it on Facebook.
Perfect. Great work.
Also, I think
I
our
forgot to
Facebook is-
mention, but if you want to have a tour or anything, please, we can arrange that through Kurt, and you could view the solar panels and their operation, or even go out and look at the pond cleaning, it's pretty impressive. So the other thing to mention is looking forward into the future, in terms of capital projects, the lag time, the supply chain is still messed up. We've got a rule of thumb now. Any piece of equipment that you order, there's going to be a 33-week or longer lead time, and problem is significant enough. We've got a big project I won't mention coming up, that the construction won't even take place until 2028. Well, this month we're already starting the planning process, preparation for that project because of equipment lead times. So.
Well, I had a tour last week, spent some time with Garrett. I just was really impressed with the forethought and planning that Garrett and Kurt and our whole operations team, including you, Brian, are putting into these projects. Learning from them, thinking about how to improve things in the future. And just wanted to share with the commission that there were lots of little things that, having been in an operation as well myself in the past, that where things gone right. So.
Yeah, and just kudos to Paul for securing that grant funding for cybersecurity. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, commissioners.
Commissioner reports.
Okay, commissioner reports. I'll go first. So last week I decided not to go to Fort when I attended PPC remotely. And that was a Tuesday evening, I believe, no, Wednesday afternoon, 3 to 5, and Thursday morning, 8 to noon. And I think the one thing I want to convey to the commission is that you've all been exposed to this a little bit, but and I don't agree with it completely, but I think it's my job to carry back to the commission this strong sentiment in the public art community about a lack of realism in how our state legislature and let's just say Western Washington is not realistic about power supply and power and how to develop power supply to meet growing demand. It has elements having to do with transmission, because so much of the needs of Western Washington are being met from supply from Eastern Washington. It has to do with, of course, the time of time of demand not lining up with the time of supply with renewables. And it has to do with the general feeling that Western Washington population centers growth are externalizing the footprint of their energy demand on other communities. And I think those are sentiments that are hard to argue with. They feel very real.
Mm-hmm.
There's real physics behind all of it. So, I think that there are things that ironically, the ways out of those dilemmas, for example, practices around storage, demand management that you talked about when you became a commissioner based on your prior experience. Storage is something I worked on, so the thing is that ironically, the PUD community, public park community doesn't actually do very much to mitigate, or rely on or help promote those technologies and those pathways. So, yeah, that's okay. That's a separate point. But I just wanted to convey that. This week I'm going to PUD, meetings in leaving tonight. And the reason my schedule next week is ambiguous is because water workshop is next week. You know, I have a mentor. I'm a mentor of Ken Hayes. And I think I want to go to the commission meeting on Monday. I've never been to their commission meeting. I think it's, Chris did that for me. It was a real, very much appreciated that, this show of support. And they've been, boy, if there's a PUD that's been through a transition, it's Clallam. And they've come out really strong. Bringing in a former GM as a commissioner. It's an amazing commission. Yeah, because one of their commissioners resigned. After Ken Hayes was elected. Anyway, so you know, it could have gone badly, and it's gone very well. So I'll be there. And some, I don't know how many days, but it's hard to be away that much. So I'm gonna get people to help take care of things. I'm gonna be doing that. So anyway, I wanted to share those things. That's enough.
Oh, sure. I mean, I don't have much. I was going to recommend that we do a board retreat. At either the end of this year or the beginning of next year. It's something facilitated, so I'm looking forward to talking more about that.
So maybe both what commissioners are talking about, you know, a real retreat and then also something quick to get priorities established.
Yes, yeah. And that I will be attending the WAPUDA meetings by Zoom. That's all.
I would say a big focus for me has just been learning a little bit more about the some geothermal opportunities and the just how it works. So I've had a few meetings with Chris and we met with Energy Northwest.
There's a whole list of people.
Yeah.
Christine's been
Yeah.
meeting with me on.
Yeah, so just that's kind of been a focus for me. And then I think one thing I've been trying to learn in my role here is like, what are my skills? What can I bring to the table that helps things? And I did a lot of writing in my past career, kind of helping translate engineering to English. Yeah, so I was working on a press release that Chris did, and then also kind of working on a 2-pager around the geothermal thing. So just kind of plugging along on that with him. And I don't know if I'm gonna, I might try to catch the water meeting for WAPUDA, but we've got a meeting on Thursday during those WAPUDA meetings that I'm gonna prioritize. But I will try to get on the water one via Zoom, but it will not be traveling for that.
Is there anything you want us to cover for you?
I mean, if you're gonna go to will you be there for the water?
I'll
Do
be
you
there
want to
for
just cover the water for me?
Well, yeah, but is there something you want me to make sure I
No,
report back?
no, I mean, I think if they might talk about policy 2030,
Okay,
but if you're gonna be there anyways, if you can cover it for me, that'd be awesome.
it occurs to me, and I probably should have brought up my report if I may, just bring up that to being able to address all the problems that we have that Bill Clark has been pushing on and was frustrated by in the policy that prevents forgetting the
Relinquishment.
relinquishment. And what's the name of the law?
Municipal water.
Foster,
Foster.
the foster fix. I don't, boy, it just was stuck somewhere in my brain. So the foster fix, I think that's a priority for this PUD. Is that fair to say? Yeah,
I
so
think it's also a WAPUDA priority.
I know it's a
That's
WAPUDA
one where it's
priority.
good that our priorities line up. That's
Yeah.
not always the case.
Yeah,
but this
so
is-
I'll come back to the commission, trying to have some sidebar discussions on where we are with the foster legislation. And I did be good to know of our legislative delegation, who's our lead. It's always easy for us if we have a lead legislator in the 42nd.
On water.
On water.
I think Representative Blackenoff is one of she seems to have the most water expertise.
Even though she's in the 40th,
40th,
yeah.
but she seems to dig
Still
into
part
it.
of Whatcom County.
She is
Yeah.
part of Whatcom County, but yeah, she's.
And then the Sac Basin.
Mhm. Let me just finish one other thing too with my commission report. I met with Derek Long, who's the executive director of Sustainable Connections. And he gave me 2 recommendations for executive coaches / organizational development experts that are locally or that are local. And so I can send those on to you, Chris. There's one that's Bellingham based, one that's Linden based, and I know John.
I sent one to you and
Okay.
the same one I sent to a
Okay.
school.
Yeah,
I
I
sent
got
to you,
that.
both of you. He is out of California.
Oh, okay. One thing that was interesting to me though, is Derek mentioned to me that Henry Bierlink and Fred Lickle
Mhm.
both reached out to him to ask if Sustainable Connections could support them with water use efficiency. And that's not really in their wheelhouse, but I guess I was surprised to learn that those 2 organizations were looking to do water use efficiency and were kind of looking for an organization to support them.
Well,
So,
an individual would be Eric Hurst. He'd be
Mhm.
happy to hook up with them, and that'd be a great use of his skills.
Oh, I mean, I think they're looking for an organization to help do program delivery to farmers.
He'd
So,
be good on the program design side.
yeah, I mean, I think I talked to Eric recently. I mean, he's in his 80s. He's not really looking for work right now, but I guess I just wanted to bring that up, and I told Derek that I would follow up with him with some contacts from WSU that were working on water use efficiency. But I think just a different perspective, because I think that there was sort of this sort of general sense that the farmers weren't interested in water use efficiency. And then hearing from Derek, you know, he's actually hearing from the farming community that they're interested in support in that area. Again, I don't know that we have the bandwidth to do that. That's part of our prioritization process. But I just wanted to, you know, share the things I'm hearing in the community. Yeah.
I'm your alternate for the water.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll try to.
Okay, well, if the tool's there, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna add.
I'll be there.
Okay.
I'll just pay more attention. Okay, is that it for, I just, so if I go to the Clallam PUD commission meeting, I'd like to put that on my pretty.
Yeah, that sounds.
It's a Monday meeting. And then on Tuesday, I'll have nothing, so I'll just probably hang out in Clallam County. There's lots of beautiful places in Clallam County as well. And I'll probably stay with Commissioner Waddell, so I won't be needing any hotel support. So, thank you. Always for that.
I think my only per diem request is for another, I think I'll bill I build one for but just one for another geothermal meeting.
Yeah,
Chris and I are having next week.
okay.
And to be fair, I mean, you've put in dozens of hours in the last 2 weeks on that.
I have been
Absolutely.
doing a lot of, but it's okay. Yeah,
And it's very appreciated.
thanks.
Okay, so let's move on to public comment. We have a second public comment period. And it looks like we have David Olson's hand up. But is there anything in room? Okay, so can we have Dave promoted? Can someone allow Dave to speak?
It looks like Mike's got it,
Okay,
There.
Yeah, he's
we
there.
go. Dave, you're live.
Morning, Commissioners. I just wanted to follow up on Commissioner Arnett's question early on, and I know Chris has got a handful and doesn't get to see all the wonderful details that you guys support in the community. So I thought I'd take 3 minutes here and just give you a quick update. And so you may not realize it, but I work with the PUD, and I'm just reading something so I can do it real quick here. But I work with the PUD under your professional support agreement program in support of your strategic planning initiative to support, water systems. And the PUD is often the first place that water systems call or are referred to by word of mouth or by the local and state agencies. So you're a go-to already. And so most water systems only have volunteers that operate the system on a day-to-day basis, but they don't have professional resources that can assist them with common situations or complete failure of their system due to lack of water, like the case is with the Bakerview Water Association that Commissioner Arnett mentioned earlier, and Chris. So when a water association faces a crisis like Bakerview or others that you mentioned today, they are really deer in the headlights and they don't know where to turn or where for help or what to do next. What you may not be aware of, and just to support what Chris was discussing earlier, is that through the PUD initiative to support local water associations, we were working with those systems long before you ever heard about them in the media, all of them, in fact. And regarding Bakerview Water Association, they had actually reached out to us shortly after finding out they had the first indication of a problem. And within hours, literally, we were able to help them triage their situation, secure a temporary source of water, and come up with a strategy for a long-term solution. And as of this week, Bakerview has a new permanent supply of water that is not relying on any other utility. They're certainly taking care of their own funding. We didn't provide anything other than technical support and professional expertise to guide them through the process. And all of this was in large part due to the PUD initiative supporting them and allowing me to assist them. So we were able to work with local and state agencies to navigate and expedite the normally very long and arduous, complicated process. We did this in record time, days and weeks instead of months, and sometimes 6 to 8 months at a time to do some of these things. We were able to provide experience and expertise to work through the technical and mechanical aspects with vendors and engineers that they contracted with. And so they are now in a position to continue on their own through the rest of the approval process, even though we're an available resource. So come in, support them, help them through the tough spot, give them guidance, and then help them with the next steps so they can go on their own. And so we continue to work with the other systems you heard about in the news, as well as others. And we also, as Chris is aware and mentioned, we're meeting with state and local agencies to strategize how best to address these types of situations, both with the PUD and in general with the county. So just wanted to update you on that and give you my personal thanks for just having the commissioners allow me to serve the community in this area that I'm not sure how else they would, be able to face these. So thank you on behalf of Bakerview. They wanted me to say thank you, and thanks from me too. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Dave. It'd be wonderful if we had more information available to the public about that being a success story. And how the PUD did help, because there were questions.
Could we do a quick social media post about it? Or take a picture, or,
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
I'm also writing, maybe we ought to think about doing a press, or even if we don't get traction, we can just put it on our website.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the cool thing about social media was that it's, instead of doing a full-blown press release, you and Dave can just put a few sentences together about what the PUD did with some sort of.
Because it's in your district. It would be a good thing.
Yeah, Chris and I can talk about it.
Yeah.
He's sitting there happy that his team got a TRO against the Pac-12.
There were 8 teams in Pac-12 that are ranked executive session and there was no decisions taken. And we're going to close the meeting at noon. Thank you all.